Mohenjo Daro, ancient India. Was there an ancient nuclear catastrophe around 2000 BC? We all know the Vimanas of ancient India, their advanced technical knowledge. Now, in the 1920s, the discovery of ancient cities of Mohenjo Daro and Harappa in Pakistan and India gave the first indication of the existence of the Indus Valley civilization more than 4,000 years ago, which rivals the cultures of Egypt and Mesopotamia. These cities have shown an excellent level of political planning and comfort. The houses had brick bathrooms and many had toilets. They had underground plumbing, sewage systems. The sewage was led to well-made red brick sewers running along the centers of the roads, which were covered with bricks or stone slabs. Cisterns and wells made of wedge-shaped bricks, providing the public with clean drinking water. Mohenjo Daro also boasted a large bath on the high embankment, the citadel, overlooking the residential area of the city. Built from layers of carefully placed bricks, gypsum mortar, and waterproof asphalt, this bath is generally believed to have been used for ritual cleansing. However, unlike the well-equipped houses and clean streets, the upper levels of Mohenjo Daro contain miserable makeshift dwellings, a careless mix of urban and industrial activities, and most importantly, a series of more than 40 fallen skeletons scattered throughout the streets and houses. And Paul Ban in 2002 describes the scene. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. He said, in a room with a public well in an area of the city, were found the skeletons of 2 people who appear desperately to have used their last forces to move, crawling to the stairs leading from the room to the street. The remains of 2 others are nearby. Elsewhere in the area, the strangely deformed and incomplete remains of 9 people were found, possibly dumped in a rough pit. In a lane between 2 houses in another area, 6 other skeletons were loosely covered with dirt. Many other skeletons were found in layers of rubble, ash, and debris, or fallen on the road in deformed places that show anguish and violent death. So it was a catastrophe that would seem to be quite violent. The remains of these people have led many archaeologists so far to conclude that these people all lost their lives violently. Sir Mortimer Wheeler, who excavated the Mohenjo Daro in the 1950s, believes that they were the victims of a single massacre, suggesting that the Indian civilization, whose collapse was unexplained, had fallen from an armed invasion by Indo-Aryans, nomads, newcomers from the northwest, who are believed to have settled in India during the 2nd millennium BC. Wheeler claimed that the remains belonged to people who ruled the city in the last hours. This theory was so convincing that it became the official accepted version of the fate of the Indian culture. But many of his claims simply do not add up. There was no indication that the skeletons belonged to soldiers, hence defenders of the cities, as no weapons were found and the skeletons did not contain any evidence of violent injuries. Some archaeologists have suggested that the invasion of the Indo-Aryan peoples took place after the fall of the Hindu civilization, while others question whether the Indo-Aryan invasion of the continent ever took place. Floods and diseases. An alternative theory proposes that the city suffered extensive flooding and that people lost their lives as a result of water contamination by diseases such as cholera. Recent research has revealed significant evidence of flooding in Mohenjo Daro in the form of several layers of muddy clay. The Indus River changed course several times and over the centuries gradually moved eastward, leading at regular intervals to flooding within the city limits. Indeed, the massive red brick platforms from which the city is built, as well as the fortifications around their sections, appear to have been designed to provide protection against such floods. The conditions would be ideal for the transmission of waterborne diseases, mainly cholera, although cholera epidemics could not be proven to have occurred. The conclusion that the prevailing trend, according to many archaeologists, is that the victims of this Mohenjo Daro quote-unquote slaughter were simply victims of the natural tragedy of the deadly disease, cholera, and not human aggression. But this theory also has many gaps. Why do human remains appear in deformed places, almost frozen at the time of death? Why do they seem to have been hit so hard and so suddenly? Surely if they died of cholera, their bodies would be buried or burned so as not to be scattered around the city. Now, what about evidence of some kind of a nuclear activity or an atomic war? There are growing numbers of alternative archaeologists and researchers who are not convinced by theories that do not satisfactorily explain the death conditions of skeletal remains and who have sought other explanations. One such person is David Davenport, an Anglo-Indian scholar who spent 12 years studying ancient Hindu texts and evidence at the site of a large city. In his book Atomic Catastrophe in 2000 BC, he reveals some surprising findings. The objects found in the area seem to have been fused, glazed from a very high temperature, up to 1,500 degrees Celsius, following an abrupt cooling. Inside the city itself, there seems to be a spotlight about 50 kilometers wide, in which everything has crystallized or melted. 60 kilometers from the center, the bricks have melted on one side, which shows a heat shock wave. A. Gorbowski, in his book Enigmas of Ancient History, reported the discovery of at least one human skeleton in the area with a level of radioactivity about 50 times higher than normal level of radiation. Davenport claimed that what was found in Mohenjo Daro corresponded exactly to what happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan. Davenport's theory has aroused great interest in the scientific community. Internationally renowned expert William Strum said the melting of the bricks at Mohenjo Daro could not have been caused by a normal fire, while Professor Antonio Castellani, a spaceship engineer in Rome, said it is possible that what happened in Mohenjo Daro was not a natural phenomenon. Since there is no evidence of a volcanic eruption in Mohenjo Daro, one answer that has been proposed is that the ancient city could have been irradiated by an atomic eruption, and if this is true, it would be impossible to ignore the conclusion that ancient civilization possessed high technology. If Mohenjo Daro was destroyed by a nuclear disaster, who created the weapons and how? If not, then what was it that produced enough heat to glaze stone and bricks? What could explain the high degree of radioactive radiation in the skeletons? And how did all these people die in an instant? We believe that it's time to stop accepting sterile view of the world that's been communicated to us by officially accepted science and archaeology and start digging a little deeper. But no relevant data has been found to be reported by archaeologists. In addition, even if we accept that a nuclear explosion took place in India 12,000 years ago, a half-life of isotopes is relatively short. For example, isotopes produced by nuclear explosions such as cesium-137 have a half-life of 30 years, while strontium-90 has a half-life of 28 years. So after so many years, they would be undetectable. That's why today Hiroshima and Nagasaki are inhabited with radioactivity levels safe. Mohenjo Daro and Harappa ancient atomic wars? What happened there? Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. I believe it could have been irradiated by some kind of a nuclear catastrophe.